In this city, tragedy strikes daily, with residents painfully aware that they could be next in line for a grim fate. The story opens in Arizona, 1882, a harsh era marked by famine, rampant illness, and constant struggle for survival. Only the bold and daring can endure such challenges. In a small town, the locals gather, eagerly anticipating a duel. One of the duelists has arrived, while everyone awaits his opponent. The second participant rushes in but trips and falls. However, he quickly regains his footing and prepares to face his rival. The challenger insists that Stark draw his gun, but the anxious young man attempts to resolve the issue through dialogue. He proposes to sell some sheep to make amends for the grazing damage caused. The opponent agrees but gives him 2 days to resolve it or face death. Later, by the lake with his girlfriend, a young man voices his worries about the upcoming duel. Louise interrupts, declaring their relationship over. Despite a year together, she craves something different. She believes she has time to focus on herself, while Albert is unwilling to accept her choice. In the town saloon, patrons are entertained. One man waits for his girlfriend to finish working, and when asked if he's okay with her seeing multiple clients daily, he responds that he understands. His job is tough, too. When Ruth comes out, she joyfully greets him, but is soon reminded of her other client for the evening. Back home, Albert discovers one of his sheep on the roof. That evening, Eddie and Ruth visit to console him about Louise. Albert shares beautiful photos of her, lamenting the inability to capture smiles. He feels lost and willing to do anything for her. To distract himself, he invites his friends out for drinks. At the saloon, Albert tries to convince his friends that they're living in the worst place at the worst time. Everything seems designed to bring harm, from alcohol and criminals to harsh conditions and even the doctor, who has a history of violence. He points out miners consuming an unhealthy diet, which could lead to dire health consequences. Just then, one of the miners dies unexpectedly, reinforcing his bleak perspective. Outside, he points to a corpse that has been left unattended for days. As wolves drag it away, his friends throw him out of the saloon for his complaints. On the steps, Ruth tends to a wound, suggesting Albert speak to Louise. Inspired, he drunkenly heads to her home, but when he knocks, she rejects him and shuts the door. In the desert, an old man travels with his dog, Plugger, while holding a piece of gold. When confronted by a group of riders, he agrees to help them find their way, but is forced into a duel by their leader. The old man is shot before he can even react, leading to a confrontation with the outraged girl in the group. As they plan their next steps, she takes the dog with her. Meanwhile, Albert wakes up in the afternoon and runs into Eddie, who expresses concern over Albert's withdrawal. Despite Albert's attempts to downplay his situation, Eddie points out his lack of productivity. As they walk through town, they spot Louise with her new partner, which upsets Albert. They soon witness a tragic accident involving a block of ice falling on a worker. At church, the pastor honors the deceased and introduces new residents, Louis and Anna, who plan to start a farm. Later at the store, Louise shops for a dress with her boyfriend, Foy. Albert confronts Foy about stealing his girlfriend, but Foy insists she made her own choice. That night, tensions rise in the saloon as Eddie declares his feelings for Ruth, but she resists, citing their Christian values. Albert announces his plan to leave town, and chaos erupts when a patron shoots Louis. In the midst of the fight, Albert saves Anna from danger. They bond over their troubled pasts and devise a plan to attend the fair together to provoke Louise's jealousy. On fair day, Anna is excited to have her photo taken for the first time. As they wait, she reminisces about a photo where someone smiled. Just then, a catastrophic accident occurs when the photographer's equipment malfunctions, leading to a tragic fire. Albert mourns the annual tragedy of someone always dying at the fair. As they continue, they encounter Louise and Foy, leading to a heated exchange between the couples. Anna suggests they head to the shooting gallery, and Foy eagerly agrees. Foy takes his turn first, skillfully hitting all the targets representing runaway slaves. Albert follows but misses entirely, losing 6 cents. Anna then proposes a wager. If she can hit all the targets instead of Albert, Foy must give her $1. The crowd gasps as $1 is a rare sight. Foy agrees and Anna takes a pistol in each hand, requesting the targets to move quickly. She hits everyone flawlessly. Furious, Foy hands over the $1, taunting Albert in the process. In a fit of frustration, Albert challenges Foy to a duel the following day. Anna suggests postponing it for a week, and everyone concurs. Once alone, Albert realizes his blunder and confides in Anna that he doesn't know how to shoot. She assures him that she will teach him. The next day, they venture into the desert, and Anna asks Albert what he saw in Louise, remarking that she seemed unkind and selfish. Albert defends Louise, describing her as funny, smart, and a capable sheep herder, despite his doubts. After their chat, Anna begins to train Albert, but he struggles to hit the target, even at close range. By week's end, he finally begins to improve. Meanwhile, in prison, the sheriff brings dinner to Louis, who pretends to be asleep before launching a surprise attack and killing the sheriff as he sets down the food. At the dance, Anna dazzles in a beautiful gown, though it's deemed inappropriate for the event. Albert fears it could be his last night, but Anna encourages him to trust her. They catch the attention of Foy and Louise, who requests a song from the singer. As the dancing begins, Albert is shoved off the floor. Anna suggests they grab a bottle of whiskey and leave, which Albert agrees to. She takes the bottle and 2 glasses, secretly adding something to one before approaching Foy and Louise. She pours whiskey and proposes a drinking game, and Foy quickly downs his drink. Satisfied, Anna confronts Louise with her thoughts before returning to Albert. They head to the farm where they drink and talk. Albert expresses his gratitude to Anna for believing in him and introduces her to a sheep named Bridget, who has a small gift for Anna. When she unwraps it, she discovers a photo of Albert smiling. Overjoyed, she kisses him. Feeling shy, Anna decides it's time to go home. As Albert walks her to the door, they share another kiss, unaware that Louis is watching. As Albert heads home, he notices a barn emitting an unusual blue light. Curious, he peeks inside and sees a peculiar old man, Emmett Brown, working on an unfamiliar device, a DeLorean. Confused by what he's witnessed, Albert continues on his way. Meanwhile, Foy and Louise are in bed. Louise pleads with Foy to call off the duel, but he insists she get to work. She begins to please him while he indulges in his own fantasies until an upset stomach interrupts him, forcing him to rush to the bathroom. The next morning, Anna prepares to support Albert in the duel. A knock at the door reveals Clinch is standing outside. In town, the locals gather on the main street as Albert waits for his opponent. Foy eventually arrives, looking extremely ill and struggling to walk. When he reaches the designated spot, he can't hold it any longer, grabs a spectator's hat, and loudly defecates into it. Afterward, he tries to return to the center, but Albert has lost his resolve to duel. He declares that he no longer wants Louise and turns to Anna, expressing that she means a lot to him, but love must be mutual. If she's happier with Foy, so be it. After the duel, Albert heads to Anna's hotel room, but she's missing. He goes to the saloon and informs Eddie and Ruth about her disappearance. At that moment, Clinch enters, looking for the man who kissed his wife, Anna. He questions a patron, shoots him, and declares that the culprit must appear on the main road by noon the next day. Clinch and his gang then leave, taking Anna with them. Clinch issues orders to his men while he confronts Anna, demanding to know who her lover is. She finally confesses after he threatens her dog. Once he learns it was Albert Stark, he kisses her. But Anna is furious and strikes him with a stone meanwhile. Albert is packing when he sees Anna approaching the house. She warns him that he needs to leave immediately because Clinch knows about their encounter. Angered that Anna kept her husband's identity from him, she explains she didn't want to scare him off and admits her strong feelings for him. She shares that she married young and didn't want to end up an old maid. Just then, Clinch and his gang arrive, and Albert tells Anna to escape through the back and head into the mountains. Before she goes, she warns him that Clinch counts to 2 before shooting. When Clinch reaches the farm, he orders his men to find Albert. They search the house and barn but come up empty. Meanwhile, Albert hides among his sheep. Once the gang is distracted, he sneaks out, mounts a horse, and rides off. Clinch fires at him but misses, and the entire gang gives chase. At one point, Albert nearly gets caught, but he cleverly evades his pursuers by slipping past a train. Once the train is passed, Clinch spots Albert and his horse jumping into one of the train cars, though he believes Albert will ultimately return. After getting off the train, Albert continues his journey through the desert, dismounts, and starts to set up camp. Before he can light a fire, he's suddenly knocked out by a stone hitting his head. Meanwhile, in town, Ruth decides to spend the night with Eddie, thinking that with Clinch Leatherwood in town and the threat of danger looming, their sins might be forgiven. Eddie is excited as it's his first romantic encounter, but their evening is interrupted by a knock at the door. When they open it, they find Anna on the doorstep, revealing that her husband is searching for her. Ruth peeks out the window and spots Clinch coming up the stairs. Anna then sneaks back into bed with Eddie, but their door is soon nearly burst open by Louis and the girl, who beg for their lives, fearing they'll be killed on their first night together. Anna is nowhere to be found as she has escaped through a window and lands directly in Clinch's arms. Meanwhile, Albert regains consciousness tied to a stake and surrounded by Native Americans who are preparing to burn him. He manages to communicate with them in their language, pleading for his life. They are taken aback and halt the execution. After freeing him, they invite him to join their fire and listen to his story. Unsure of what to do next, Albert is encouraged by the chief to drink a special potion. He hesitates initially due to his past experiences with drugs, which often lead to hallucinations, but the chief assures him it will be safe. Gathering his courage, Albert downs the potion in one gulp, only to realize it was intended for the entire tribe. Soon, he finds himself lost in a drug-induced hallucination, recalling moments from his childhood like discovering there was no tooth fairy and encountering a fake Abraham Lincoln at his graduation. He remembers trying to impress Louise by taming wild horses, only to be chased by a group of dwarves. In his vision, he arrives at a magical meadow where Anna tells Louise that she is blind despite having eyes all over her face. When Louise turns around, Albert is startled by her massive eyes and screams in terror. However, he is drawn to a mysterious voice that leads him to sheep wearing mustaches and hats, singing and dancing. Suddenly, a door descends from the sky, with a voice claiming to be the guardians of the future, inviting him to enter. As he gathers himself, Albert opens the door, expecting to find Anna in a wedding dress, but the vision dissipates, and instead he faces a predatory bird with Clinch's face attacking him. After overcoming the creature, Albert snaps back to reality. The chief tells him that defeating the Black Condor in his vision signifies he possesses true courage. He just needs to believe in himself to find happiness. The next morning, the tribe sends Albert off with their blessings. He expresses his gratitude, and the chief shares a saying from their culture. Sometimes happiness comes from a collective experience with a magical potion. Meanwhile, Clinch, holding Anna captive, waits for Albert on the main road naturally. Albert shows up. While the townspeople secretly observe their confrontation, Clinch commands his men to take Anna away and accuses Albert of having an affair with his wife. Albert refutes Clinch's accusations and suggests they resolve their conflict through a duel. Clinch, amused, agrees. As they both draw their guns, Clinch begins to count down, but Albert remembers that Clinch fires on 2, so he shoots first on 1, hitting Clinch in the shoulder. Clinch retaliates, shooting Albert's gun out of his hand. Realizing he may be facing his end, Albert asks for a chance to say his last words. He pleads for Anna's release, claiming she is innocent and admitting he was the one who kissed her. He also requests to perform an Islamic funeral song. At that moment, Clinch starts to feel unwell. Albert reveals he had poisoned the bullet with rattlesnake venom. He knew his aim wasn't great, but he hoped to catch Clinch off guard. After learning shooting basics from Anna and obtaining the poison with help from the Native Americans, Albert's speech is interrupted by Ruth, who announces Clinch's death, likely not having heard Albert's cleverness. Immediately, Anna breaks free from Clinch's henchmen and rushes to Albert, embracing him and sharing a kiss. Albert apologizes for killing her husband, but Anna laughs, saying it's not a problem. It wouldn't have been a good match anyway. Just then, Louise approaches Albert, inviting him to join her later, but he declines, wanting to focus on himself. With Anna in his arms, they step away from the crowd. As they walk, the girl mentions that a reward may be offered for Clinch, speculating where Albert might spend it, but he hasn't considered that yet. On their farm, Albert and Anna, surrounded by countless sheep, embrace and kiss. At the fair, a carnival worker is calling out for visitors to shoot at runaway slaves. A dark-skinned man approaches, pulls out his revolver, and shoots the worker, muttering, "Damn the fair," before hiding his weapon. How effectively do you think the film parodies Wild West stereotypes? Share your thoughts in the comments below, hit the like button, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.